Hello and welcome to Fertility Clarity with Dr. Anna. Today we have our wonderful guest, Elisa Flores. She is one of the mental health counselors at Charlandra Counseling Services. And I'm so happy to have you with us today, Elisa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here too. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So today we are going to talk about being a single parent by choice. And before I met you, that was a new concept for me. And I'm somebody who is a fertility expert. I have infertility. I've been working as a mental health counselor with others who struggle with fertility for probably 5 years now. And this whole area of being a single parent by choice is new to me. And so I wanted to have this conversation so you can share with others what is being a single parent by choice and navigating the donor sperm world so that we can give our viewers and listeners an insight into that process, if that is their choice, and if they're wondering, how do I go about doing this? So, Alyssa, to start, can you share with us what is being a single parent by choice?
So I just want to start with, in my experience, being a single parent by choice meant that, I spent a lot of my time being involved in my career, right? But at the same time, I came to a point now in my life where I thought, oh, I want to have a family, but I'm single, right? So this is an obstacle or a challenge or it's a bump in the road even. But yeah, it's pretty much is what that meant to me. And then I decided to start the process for fertility. What's different in my case is I may not be necessarily infertile, but I'm still going through the same infertility process that say, women who are married with a spouse are doing. So, but then here comes the other challenges where, excuse me, where I've been involved with hormones, and I'm also by myself, right? I have to give myself the injection shots. I have to run to the clinic at 7 a.m. and ask the right questions that I think are the right questions. So a lot of the challenges of being a single mom by choice is you kind of have to think of everything, and it's kind of slowly isolates you a little bit. It is hard to get away from the microaggressions also, which are people saying to me, oh, well, why don't you just get someone? Oh, you're good looking, you can get any man you want. Oh, why don't you just do this and just do that, right? It's always like everyone has an answer. But I don't want the problems involved in just having like a baby daddy, right? I don't want those kind of issues. I want a family, and I don't think I have enough time to have a full-blown family. So this is my idea of creating a family. I was raised by a single mom. So I did see the struggles with it, and I also see how it worked out. So, that's my experience. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So, Alyssa, you bring up your mom, and I remember from our conversations what helped you decide to follow this journey to become a single parent by choice using donor sperm involved the story of your mom. Can you share that a little bit with our listeners?
Yeah, of course. So I was born in the 80s. So I was born in the 80s and in the Bronx. My parents did not stay together. So my mom did raise me on her own. She was a very strong woman. I mean, she worked in Wall Street and she had a very good job. So she was able to make it happen and make it work. She's my idol. She's the epitome of strength, in my opinion. And I don't know any other woman like her. She's my mom. I look up to her. Is it the right idea to go about being a single mom the way she did, she might not think so,
Mhm.
because it was quite the struggle. But at the same time, I know in my heart and I believe that if she was able to do it, I know I'll be able to do it. You
Mm.
know, I was bred
Mhm.
from the same
Mhm.
strength, you know.
Mhm. Mm.
So
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. Like you said, that strength is coming from your mom and from what you experienced growing up in your own single parent household, which now is not such a bad thing. I think historically it's been viewed as like, oh, that's a deficit. That's a bad thing. And now I think it has become, well, I hope it's moved in a direction where it's not stigmatized or looked down upon. And I think people like you and others who are deciding to be single parents by choice are really shifting that narrative of saying
yeah,
a family can be one
yeah.
parent.
Yeah, and I really want to help push this narrative. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not taboo anymore like it once was, you know. Back in the 80s and before that or whenever, it was like, oh wow, you're a single mom, you're like this,
Mm,
you know, this weak person. But now it's a symbol of strength, I feel
mm,
like, you know,
mhm,
if you're a single mom and you're doing it all and you're doing your thing, you know, that's great. And on the flip side of that, you know, there's also support in that department.
mm,
There's plenty of support.
mm,
I think that's where meeting you came into play, because I'm now meeting a lot of other women who
mm,
are going through fertility treatments or infertility treatments, and we can all support each other.
mhm,
And I am meeting other single moms by choice, you know, and it's really empowering to meet other women that have the similar views as I do. And they just want to move forward and have a family. And there's nothing wrong with that.
mm, mhm. Yeah, and at Charlandra Counseling Services, we have online support groups. We offer one-on-one mental health counseling exactly for that purpose, to provide that community for women and couples struggling to conceive, to have strength and hope and validation in their experience that they're not alone in this process.
Yeah, it's definitely a relief to know that I really wasn't alone.
Mm,
You know,
mhm,
it started out and kind of maybe was becoming like something like, oh, I'm gonna do this by myself, whatever. But as I went through the process and I spoken more to you and I've met other women, I'm like, I'm not alone.
mhm,
There's plenty of us out there. You know, we all could give each other advice. You know, someone's like, oh yeah, I'm a single mom by choice. And, you know, this is what I did. You know, I
yeah,
think you told me that you hired, is it a team to kind of help
uh-huh.
around the home?
Oh
So these
yeah,
little
yeah.
ideas, yeah, these little things really, they really, yeah, these are huge ideas that we all can help each other with.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is why I appreciate this community.
Yeah, thank you. And we're so happy and proud to be able to provide it for our community as well. So tell me about the medical ins and outs of becoming a parent without the sperm, without that male part. How do you do that? How does that happen as a single parent by choice?
So I went on a online sperm bank, which is kind of like going on a dating site.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like going on a dating site, except
Uh-huh.
it's a very detailed dating site.
Mhm.
Instead of the typical, I like long walks on the beach. You get the more like, oh, you know, my DNA shows that I have this and that. You know, my parents, they may struggle with these kind of diseases, or you know, it's just a
Mm,
more detailed.
mm,
You
mhm.
see baby pictures, adult pictures. It's really it could be overwhelming actually at first, right? When you're looking at this by yourself, it's like, oh my God, I have to pick.
Right.
I have to pick. Yeah, I have to figure out as far as DNA is concerned, you know, who has
Mm,
what. Is my baby at risk? I have to figure out if I want a donor who is anonymous, or you know, am I open to having my child meet their donor?
mm,
These
mhm,
are things that are really questionable. Does my donor have other kids out there? And how would I feel about these other kids connecting with my kids? So there's so many questions to be asked in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I see your face of being of perplexity or being perplexed. And like you said, with any fertility journey, the same with couples seeking fertility help, there are so many ethical and moral and legal questions that happen that
Mhm.
we never, it's not anything you would have to think about if you naturally got pregnant.
Right.
It's like really this whole new world that can be confusing, complicated, overwhelming. And so I definitely heard that and saw that in your face about like, oh my God, I have to select sperm. This is going to be the father, genetic father to my baby. And now I have to look at all of this information and how do I make this decision? And I'm doing this alone. And this is crazy.
Yeah, it's
Crazily,
overwhelming.
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, and so what do I want to say now? So
It's it's very overwhelming, and it's like my primary interest is my baby safe?
mm,
Is my baby safe no matter what I decide?
mhm,
So that's my primary interest, and doing that alone is challenging. And it's not helpful to have, the remarks from some people.
mm,
Um,
mhm,
and going through the fertility process is very long. It's a very long process.
mhm,
Going through that, receiving good news, receiving bad news, everything is very, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. So receiving bad news is challenging too, because I've struggled to tell my family a lot, because
mm,
when I do receive the bad news, everyone's going to ask, "Oh, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant?"
mm,
And I don't
mhm,
want to talk about the bad news all the time. I keep it to myself. And the
mm,
isolating portion of this whole process is the most challenging part, I think.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that because that is one of the hardest challenges of going through a fertility journey is feeling so isolated
Mhm.
because again, and you bring up family and we're both from Puerto Rican backgrounds and coming from the Latinx background means families can be nosy, right? They want to know what's going on. And
Yeah.
especially for women our age, um, being, in our 30s and 40s, yes, we may have our career set and we may have a home that we own and we may have all of these accomplishments. But if we don't have the baby, that's the focus of our family. That's where you
Right.
get those questions, right? Like, what's going on? What are you doing
Right.
with your life? Like the end all
Yeah.
be all is just have a baby, right? Just be a mom. And so that I know I have felt those types of microaggressions too along my journey.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, right? About being Hispanic and the Hispanic family. My grandmother, she's 82 years old, and I went as far as getting my master's, and my grandmother's like, "What are you doing? Why are you still in school? Like, where's your
Uh,
baby?" Like
yeah.
she doesn't even, it's, she's from an older generation. So in her
Mm,
mind, it's like, wow, you're, I'm 35, you're 35, you should have like 2 kids by now. You
mhm,
should be
mhm.
like married, you should be in your home, settled, supporting your husband, and you should, right? All of these
That's
shoulds
uh-huh.
that don't quite apply to the new generation of,
Mhm.
like, we're in 2022. It doesn't even apply to the
Yeah.
new technology, the new world we're in, the
Right.
era.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Those generational differences really do play a role in our sense of community within our own family. And like you said, right, it isolates us because we're engaged in fertility treatments, and a lot of our family members don't even know that this exists as an
Mhm.
option. Like, what do you mean you could buy sperm? What do you mean you can, you know, what, right? Like, it comes in a vial, like what do you right? Like
Why
these
buy
are,
sperm when it's
yeah, it's
free?
free. Exactly. I'll
There's an
find you
abundance.
somebody, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of these taboo, like, oh, what? You're buying it costs how much? What? Like $1,500 for a vial? Like,
Yeah.
why? It's free. Just settle down with somebody.
Yeah.
Just pick anybody. It's like I
Right.
can't I can't do
No,
that.
you can't do that. Yeah. And I think, part of the gift of being able to use donor sperm is being able to make that choice
Mhm.
of who you want to be genetically the father of your child or the genetic donor. I don't tend to use the word father when we talk about donors because father connotes the emotional attachment or like all of these other expectations of like the father, the dad.
Yeah.
And for you being a single parent by choice, it's more so the genetic material
Mhm.
from the donor that's going to allow you to have your baby. That doesn't make that person the father because you don't know him. He's not involved in parenting. It's your child at the end of the
Right.
day.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
It's the quality of the genetics, this the
yeah,
quality of what I'm receiving. Yeah, I can have a baby with anybody, but if I'm looking into the quality and I want what's healthiest I want a healthy child.
hmm hmm yeah, and this gives you that option to achieve the most healthy child possible, medically possible. And of course, we can't control outcomes or what happens once the baby is conceived, and born. However, we can control, okay, what are the genetics of that donor, and then using that donor or not based on your genetics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So another aspect that I want to briefly talk about too is I work with a lot of same-sex couples as well. And there's some parallels between being a single parent by choice and being in a same-sex couple, because in both scenarios, one piece of the requirements to have a baby is missing.
Mhm.
So for you, it's you don't have the male partner to give you sperm. And for same-sex female couples, it's the same story. They don't have the male partner to give the sperm. So they also are seeking donor sperm to conceive. And they also get clumped into this category of infertility, even though, like you shared, you may not have infertility. It's just you have to go through this process because you happen to not have free sperm available because you're not in a partnership with a male. So, can you speak to that similarity a little bit when it comes to our same sex couples trying to conceive?
Yeah, our same-sex couples, they do definitely have the similar kind of scenario, right? Where they don't have that male component
Mm-hmm.
of having sperm. Um, and it's also challenging, I would say, in a same-sex couple situation because they're facing there it's it makes you kind of question yourself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it makes you question yourself, am I infertile?
Mm-hmm.
Am I infertile? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's, you know, you don't know. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you are indeed infertile. And it's something to really question. And going through that process too, it's always like, oh, infertility this, infertility that. And then you have a partner who's same sex partner, same, female sex partner, and one of the females is pregnant, the other one may not want to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or you might switch who becomes pregnant, or if
Mm-hmm.
both couples decide they want to become pregnant. There's always the one person who's not genetically connected to the child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of different parts to that
Mm-hmm.
same-sex couple scenario.
Right. Yeah. There really are
Yeah.
so many different parts, which definitely makes it one of the subspecialties that we do provide is having
Mhm.
those clinically guided conversations to answer those questions, to look into like who's going to get pregnant first, and are you both going to be pregnant? Are you both going to use the same sperm? Are you going to use different sperm? Like, there's so many nuances to that process that needs to be talked about as well. So thank you for bringing that up. So
Yeah.
before, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say, and definitely providing the proper kind of support.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's challenging in itself,
Mm-hmm.
being the same sex, because it's kind of tough if both parties have not had children, or if one person has had their own child in the past from maybe a past pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to take on having a new pregnancy. There's a lot of different nuances, like you said, in
Right.
the same
Yeah.
sex relationship. Yeah.
And then also just that support being uniquely tailored to that community. And
Right.
just like with single parents by choice, they may not, that person may not be infertile. And so their support needs to look differently.
Right.
It's not going to be the same as couples who have infertility, or women that have infertility, or men that have infertility. It's going to look very different because you're facing this journey of trying to conceive a child using donor sperm and going through the doctors and taking hormonal treatments, which necessitates that unique level of support.
Right. Right. And it's also important the community that you live in too.
Mm-hmm.
You want to live in a community that is accepting of
Mm-hmm.
LGBT couples,
Mm-hmm.
right? Having children. Because there's also a lot of that thought too. When we have a child, is there going to be stigma? Do I live in the right area for this? Do I live,
Yeah.
there's all this other, and I think I deal with that also as a single mom by choice.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be dealing with a stigma? Are people going to look at me and say, oh, that woman had a baby, she's by herself, her
Mm-hmm.
husband must have left her.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that brings us up to advice. What advice, recommendations would you give to single parents by choice?
My biggest thing is, do not allow yourself to isolate.
Mm,
It is the most challenging part of this, because you don't even realize it. It's like
mm,
it like
mhm,
sneaks up on you. And
mm,
next thing you know, you're at work and you're in the bathroom and you're like crying to yourself, because you just don't know where to turn. You don't know if you're being annoying. You don't want to hear people giving you the microaggressions, because if you're upset and someone's like, oh, I can't believe you're still doing this, then
mm,
it's like,
mhm.
that's not what I was looking for. That's not what
Right.
I was crying to
Mhm,
you about.
mhm,
So the isolation piece, and I believe this is for all women going through this journey, the isolation piece is different for all of us, but it's really important to just not let yourself isolate, like really recognize the signs of isolating and reaching out for help when you find that you are just in a place. Um, a lot of ways is just from the beginning, getting into support groups, getting into speaking with therapists,
mhm,
getting into it from the beginning, so you can kind of keep up with it along the way,
mhm.
as opposed to waiting till you're at that point where you have become so isolated you're not even sure where to turn.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's huge.
yeah, that is huge. Thank you for that advice, because I know I isolated when I went through my journey of 3 years trying to conceive. And now that I'm in the field of fertility counseling, it's amazing to see how many options there are
Yeah.
for support, for counseling, for couples counseling. And so that is vital, as you're saying, to really engage in that from the beginning, because just that sense of community and validation of like, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh, my story is not abnormal. Like, this is
Mhm.
normal. Like, there's a lot of people going through this. That just relieves a lot of that sense of shame
Mhm.
and, and stigma associated to this journey.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my biggest advice to
Mhm.
everyone, and even y- partners, even
Right.
partners,
Hmm.
they go through their own, whether it be a male or female partner who's with their uh, wife or, partner going through this, they have their own things that they go through too.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm single mom my choice, but still, like, I do understand in the same sex couples or in the straight couples, the partner is also going through something silently and may feel like they have to be the strength and they can't reach out for help because they're not supposed to.
Right.
A lot of them go into this mode of problem solving. And I guess as a single mom by choice, I can relate in a way, because if I feel like if I reach out to friends and family, I'm getting somebody trying to solve my problem by telling me things like, oh, just do this. And that's not solving my problem. My problem right now is I'm hurt. I feel broken. I feel like I am infertile. I feel like I will never be able to do this. I'm feeling very weak right now. So this is a time to just let me be in my emotions. Let me reach out for help. Let me cry on your shoulder. Let me be weak. And single moms, especially Hispanic, Black communities, we should be allowed to be weak. We don't have to be strong all the time. Right. Let's be weak. Let's talk about it.
Wow, that's so powerful, what you just said, Elisa. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that and will connect with that, because you're right, that's the cultural piece embedded in our identity as women from communities of color, which is got to be strong, got to sacrifice, got to work harder, just do it. Instead of, there's times when we can be vulnerable and we can be weak, and weakness is not a sign of, weakness is not negative, it's not bad, right? Weakness is a sign of I'm human, I'm vulnerable, I have emotions that need to be expressed. And it takes courage to express those emotions so that the healing process can happen.
Yes.
Yes, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And so I will be having other videos with men to talk about the male experience, since you brought up working with couples or the male partner and how they experience infertility. And also, I think from what we just talked about, one other video we can do is signs that you're isolating.
Yeah.
I think that would be really helpful to people, because again, look, I'm a mental health therapist, and when I was going through infertility, I didn't realize I was isolating. So, I think, so then for us to talk about what are those signs that we're isolating can really help our community to then connect and reach out and get support that they need.
Yeah. It's very important to recognize it. It's like eats you up, it takes you up, and you don't even know that it came for you, this isolation. Right. You have no idea. So it's like, we have to recognize this sign. That'll be a great conversation to have.
Yeah. So thank you again, Elisa, for joining us and being part of the Charlandra family. One thing that we definitely pride ourselves on as a mental health and fertility counseling provider is that our therapists have a shared experience with fertility. And so when you connect with us, whoever you work with will also be able to have that personal experience of fertility that will help you feel even more validated and more connected with somebody. So thank you. Thank you again. Thank you again. And we will definitely meet again to have another conversation about signs that we are isolating.
Of course, always open to it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, bye-bye.